Now here's a surprising fact. Generation Y, that's people born between 1978 and 2000, will have more spending power than any other generation by the year 2017. Our next guest says that group's become the nation's tastemakers by holding unprecedented sway over almost every aspect of shopping. Jayne O'Donnell is one of the authors of Gen Y, How Tweens, Teens, and 20-somethings are revolutionizing retail. Jayne, so first off, why did you decide to focus on Generation Y?
Well, they've just become so important. I think any of us that are over, say, 35 or so remembers that how little influence we had and how with our parents' purchases when we were kids, and also just how few choices we had by comparison. So these young people have really not only changed retail as far as the websites and the product selection, but they've also changed it because they're influencing what their family buys.
Now, your book says Generation Y is revolutionizing retail. What does that mean?
Well, it means in the old days there used to be 4 or 5 seasons a year: winter, spring, summer, fall, and resort. I mean, now the products in stores change rapidly. I mean, monthly, weekly sometimes. Some of the more popular stores will actually change things so frequently that they want to make sure that every time you go back to the store there's something different to look at. And even the interiors of the stores change to keep up with the short attention spans of young shoppers. And the websites are so much more user-friendly. They move. The page loads are so much more go so much more quickly. There's just everything moves more quickly, and there's so much more selection.
Short attention span shopping. Gen Y, we should say, Gen Y is people born between 1978 and 2000. So what makes this generation different than, say, Gen X and baby boomers? You know, they're slightly older relatives and parents.
Well, what we focus on, the two things that we attribute the big change to is the fact that they've been using technology since they were, old enough to actually hold something in their hand and do anything digital. They've also have, it's been well reported by now, adoring parents. So they expect a lot of attention. They expect to be able to give a lot of feedback. They actually want to be part of the whole shopping experience, from helping retailers make product selections, making their own recommendations. Online reviews were spawned in part by Gen Y. So it's technology and it's their parents. They've been on the computer so long that they expect computers to be able to do everything for them.
So certainly they view the world differently and they view merchandise differently. Do they actually shop differently in your research from older consumers?
Yes, very much so. They love shopping. Our research showed that they shop. They love shopping. About 65% of the 65% of Gen Y say they love shopping. It's more like 42% for those over 30. They do it more often. They spend more on their shopping trips, and they feel a greater connection to brands than those of us do who are Gen X or baby boomers.
So how does a marketer attract a member of Gen Y? What do you have to do that may be a little bit different?
Well, the key pretty much is these, asking them for feedback, showing that you appreciate their feedback. Some of the websites and stores that have been most successful really get Gen Y involved. There's a website and a store in Boston called Karma Loop, which actually encourages its consumers to actually sell their products. So if you're wearing a sweater and someone says, "I like your sweater," they'll hand you a card and say, "Hey, if you buy it, you'll get 10% off and I get a commission." And it works wonderfully for that site, and I think you're going to be seeing more of that. And also, posting things on their websites, so and Susie suggests this outfit, or putting the outfits together. Wet Seal actually has done better with its consumers putting outfits together, I'm told, than their buyers.
Now, you talk in your book about having to understand the lives of Gen Yers to really market to them. What does that really mean?
Well, for example, I have a 9-year-old. I mean, she's so different from a teenager. She doesn't really understand quality yet. She's more apt to want to mimic what other kids are wearing. She's a tween, so our book, spans tweens to 20-somethings. So the tweens are really trying to, look like each other, perhaps compete on the basis of quantity. Teens are, of course, trying to set themselves apart a little. They want to show their independence a bit. They actually, sometimes as they get closer to college, and certainly when they get into college, they're less interested in clothing. It's not as cool to be so into brands, so they kind of step back from that. And when they're in their 20s, one of the things we've learned is they're often kind of bummed out that they can't afford all those things those adoring parents gave them in their teens.
We talk so much about shopping and these material things. Is this really a new era of materialism that we'll see as the Gen Yers become even more predominant in the marketplace?
I think the economy certainly will put the brakes on that a little bit, but you know, it is very clear that this is a generation of shoppers, and I don't think there's any one place to point the finger. I mean, we've all grown up, I mean, this generation has grown up more hanging around shopping malls, and I don't mean the old mall rats thing, but you know, malls, as we all know now, have become kind of town centers, and they're going to become more so with movies and restaurants. So young people have been so much more exposed to retail. And then there's, of course, the 24/7 marketing messages. You know, of course, it does present many opportunities, let's say, for parents to teach some valuable lessons about kind of, you know, what's important and what isn't.
But it's interesting that they're still going to the mall, though. I mean, we're talking about all this short attention span and online experience, but they're still going to these marketplaces.
Right. I mean, online shopping is growing, but it's still a very small percentage of all overall shopping. People, whether they're young or old, still do like to feel the merchandise. Young people are very into shopping in groups. All the women in particular, but it's often guys and young ladies will shop together. They want feedback from each other. They don't want it from their mothers. They don't want it from 45. They sometimes want it from their mothers, but they don't want it from 45-year-old sales clerks.
Fair enough. Jayne O'Donnell, co-author of Gen Y, How Tweens, Teens, and 20-somethings Are Revolutionizing Retail. Thank you for coming in.